What's up, everybody? Richard Dolan here for a courageous conversation.
Well, man, today you're right. There's no going back.
How do you feel the weight of that desire?
I have been there for a while.
The story's still being written, and you cut the story short. As they say, I'm playing with house money.
They said, neo-fascist.
You can't imagine, Richard. I've heard everything now.
But I'll tell you what, you ain't never buying your time back. Value your time.
Nothing can humiliate me. I've already done that.
He said, you taught me there was more to life than pain, and that kind of opened the door for thousands and thousands of kids.
Like, you just show up no matter what.
This is an opportunity to kind of delve into yourself and actually pull out what you might have in there.
It forced me to think about life after basketball.
And it's funny because people need to laugh.
You're just passing through, brother.
Once you start a courageous conversation, there ain't ever going back to an ordinary one.
What it must be like to be a world-class athlete. The top 100 of all time, congratulations. Yeah, and to have your 14-year-old on the ice, and for all these years, how often do you bite your tongue when you're wanting to coach him and push him in some ways that I'm sure you would have if you had been around 20 years ago as a father?
Yeah, well, I do coach him.
Oh, really?
I do coach his team in Toronto, and but it's amazing. Talking, he'll listen to former players, former guys I play with, and he'll walk away from the conversation and go, "Hey, Dad, they told me the same thing you've been telling me." I said, "Your old man's not as dumb as you thought, huh?"
Do you find he listens to you secondly or after he hears other advice from others?
Yes. I've had to tell him. I have two boys. I coach my older guy too, but this one here, I've always said to him, "Christian, there's two people. There's your coach and there's your dad. You might give your dad attitude, but you can't give your coach attitude. Because when I'm behind the bench, you need to listen. If not, you're going to be treated probably worse than everybody else. You're going to sit even longer."
Well, those are good values, Paul. And what's amazing, in having met you a number of times over the years, you always are very steadfast in your values and your morals. Your moral compass is always quite strong, quite set. And that brings me back to the time in which you were at the top of your game. What would you say was some of the key attributes that made you such a great player, such a great athlete at that time?
Well, I got taught from a lot of great players, a lot of great leaders growing up, and early guys with Edmonton. And what I've tried to always been, especially as a father now and a role model as a father, and working with different people, is be consistent as possible. We had a pro in Edmonton, our former captain, before he handed the seat graciously to Wayne, a guy by the name of Lee Fogelin, and he was. Boy, you talk about a moral compass, nobody had it more than him, and he taught us a lot in those early years, and that's what sports is all about, being that veteran guy and getting taught and then passing it down to the next guys coming up. And I've always tried to keep those values, and my father was always very important to me, and we'll just try to be as consistent, as you mentioned earlier, as possible.
Well, do you find that there's a bit of a departure from building a strong, value-rich, God-fearing athletes and going straight to building just strong athletes, faster athletes? Do you feel that there's a bit of a departure, or is it maybe just a bit distracted?
I hope not, but I think it's. I mean, the sports in general is a huge business now.
Huge.
It just is, and you can't get around that. No. And like I said earlier, I've coached young kids, and I've always tried to care for them as much as I could. But I mean, the biggest thing is they need to care about people around them as well. But the old adage in sports, especially when you're in a bit of a slump, is everybody do their own job and the team will take care of itself. But you need to be conscious for sure of everybody else around you, and that's an attribute that the old veteran guys. I mean, seeing Guy Lafleur here today, I mean, that still sends chills up my.
I have goosebumps from having saw him just earlier on, and I totally empathize with that. But with that all being said, when you look at what it took to have the magic you guys had on the ice, do you find that there was something in particular that was the most consistent value you brought to the ice?
Yeah.
What would you call it?
The consistent thing is your best players, and it doesn't matter in today's game or anything, need to be your best players. And I know that Ovechkin's taking some heat right now with Washington because he needs to be better. He knows that himself, and he will be better. And luckily for me, having a chance to play with, in my mind, the greatest hockey player that ever played the game in Wayne Gretzky. And he was our hardest worker in practice, and probably the best teammate a guy could have. And then I went to Pittsburgh and followed suit with Mario. Mario wasn't sure how to get to that place, but boy, once he sniffed it, I mean, there was nobody stronger and better than him.
So what was it like to have been sandwiched between two obvious icons and legends, a legend yourself, in between these two incredible pillars, if it were, in the lineage of your career? How did that change or alter your game?
Well, you need to pick your game up. Because as I said earlier in the interview here, when your best players are your hardest workers, it's easy to follow suit. And with Wayne, and he's been the best player any team he's ever played on, probably since he was 5 or 6 years old.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't know it at the time, probably doesn't give himself enough credit, but he helped us all become better and better players because we saw the tremendous work ethic he had. And it was the same thing with Mario. Quiet kid from Quebec, arguably the most talented player that ever played the game, and he wanted to win. Wasn't sure how to get there, but he wanted to win. And then once he got a taste of it, there's nothing better.
Tell me about it. I had the pleasure of winning a couple of championship rings, having been an advisor to a coach at the NBA level, and it's not that I had to shoot balls and I didn't have to take elbows in the paint, but man, winning is something else. So
it's at the end of the day, not everybody can win, but it is what it's all about. I did a thing with the top 100 players in Ottawa about 2.5-3 weeks ago, and one of the reporters were talking about Carlson, and he said, "What does a guy like Carlson need? A great player like Carlson need to win a Stanley Cup?" And I said, "Great players don't win cups. Great teams do." Because if great players won Stanley Cups, Gretzky would have won 20 of them.
That's right.
But I said Carlson's a great player, but he needs the guys around him, and the beauty of it, they go hand in hand, is great players make everybody around them better, and the ones that can do that, and which will be interesting tonight watching Ovechkin. I love Alex Ovechkin. I think he's a great player, but it's time for him to step up and take that team on his shoulders, which we'll see. We'll see.
Final question. As we celebrate the top 100 over the past 100 years, tell me, if someone were to be watching this interview 100 years from now, what would you want them to know about this sport, about this game, about being the best athlete they can? What would be a parting piece of knowledge or wisdom, a soundbite?
Well, I mean, it's the greatest game ever. And the thing as a player, luckily for me, I played with some great teams, won some championships, was voted as one of the top 100 players, which is a huge, huge honor. And I just, we all just love to play the game and have so much respect for it.
Mr. Paul Coffey, a real true honor.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, man.